Can I see Hannah there?
Hi, Sean. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, the three of us here today, so
Very good.
Introduce ourselves, and then we can sort of go through where we are. So, Hannah Austin. I think some of you met me previously, but we haven't spoken in a while. So, I work in the council's economic growth team, and I'm supporting Keith on the New Brighton neighbourhood framework, as it's being called while it's emerging. So, Jane.
I see Jane there as well. Welcome, Jane.
Hi, thanks ever so much. Thanks for inviting me along today. I'm Jane Morgan, and I know a number of people on the call from previous work. I'm the council's lead for culture and heritage. So we've recently agreed a strategy around that. So looking ahead to things like Borough of Culture in 2024. So you'll probably be familiar with some of the events that we organised in New Brighton prior to COVID. So that was kind of under my remit. But I'm now within the Regeneration Directorate, which is there's loads of hopefully opportunities to build culture, creativity and heritage into things like the master plan, which I know you've kind of input to as well. So I'm glad to be here. I also recently looking after visitor economy, so which I think this is obviously going to be of interest in terms of New Brighton as a destination. So interested to listen to the conversation. Hopefully I can support the coastal community team as well moving forward.
Thanks, Jane. And then Keith.
Yeah, hi everybody. Can I apologise? My camera isn't working. I can reboot to try and it'll probably work, but it'll take me 5 minutes, so I can do that in a moment if people would like to like that. But otherwise, my name is Keith Keeley, and I'm head of regeneration strategy at the council. So I'm responsible for preparing the local plan and for various master plans around the borough, and I've been leading the Birkenhead 2040, and I'm responsible for the New Brighton neighbourhood framework and more detailed master plan that we can explain in a moment. Okay, so Anna, do you want me to reboot and rejoin, or continue as is?
I don't think there's any need, Keith.
Is that okay? All right, that's fine.
Clearly, so if that's okay.
Okay, that's fine. If you're happy with that, that's fine.
Yes, so Keith, you okay? Do you want to set the context for the local plan and where we're up to?
Yeah, so the local plan that I know you've picked up in the press, but the full council on 21st of March approved the new the emerging local plan. We call it the submission draft, and that's the draft document that we intend to submit to the Secretary of State, and that was approved for publication under a piece of jargon, Regulation 19, which is the opportunity for people and organisations to make representations as to its soundness. Now, again, that's a bit of jargon, but we will be publishing the local plan on the 9th of May until the 24th of June for comments or representations to be made. There's going to be detailed guidance for people as to what and how to make a representation. But in terms of New Brighton, the key thing to spell out that the local plan does require New Brighton to deliver, I haven't got the figures in front of me, I'll try and find before the end of this meeting, but it's in excess of, I think it's around 300 new homes over 15 years. So that's the target that the local plan is looking, but I will confirm that before the end of the meeting. In addition, we have been working on the neighbourhood framework for over a year now, and we'll explain the reasons for the delay shortly. But the local plan has identified within that neighbourhood framework area a master plan area, a more detailed master plan area. That's the Marine Promenade area. So that's really from the Queen's northwards, is it, towards, and includes the pavilion building. So the master plan is required. What the local plan is saying is that any development within that area will need to accord with a master plan that's been approved by the council. So the reason for that is that we've identified through the master plan, through the neighbourhood framework work, that there's a lot of potential for new development in that area, but it's also in a high profile area, and it's really important area for the town. So the council wants to influence the shape, scope and nature of development in that area, but also to help promote the development in that area. So the plan is setting that out, and any obviously it's got to be approved through an examination, and I'll explain that in a moment before it's adopted. So what will happen with the local plan is that from the 9th of May till 24th of June, anyone can make a representation on the local plan, but it has to be using a standard form that will be available. That form is a requirement of the planning inspectorate. At the end of the period of the representation on the 24th of June, it will take us, council, several weeks to collate all the comments, and then we simply submit them to the Secretary of State, who will pass them on to the planning inspector. From the day we submit, the examination on the local plan will start, but there will be formal hearings probably starting in the late autumn time. That could take anything from 6 months to 18 months, depending on the extent of the issues that the inspector identifies. And at the end of that period, the inspector will make recommendations to the council as to whether the plan can be adopted with or without modification. Okay, so we are now at an advanced stage in the preparation of the local plan. As a broad message, the plan doesn't propose any release of greenbelt, but it does propose it is based on the council's preferred option, which is urban intensification, which will see development, all the borough's development needs over the next 15 years met within existing urban areas, and that includes New Brighton. So there will be a requirement for most towns and places to accommodate new housing in particular, but all in the context of its character, and subject to obviously detailed planning permissions, etc. Okay, so I don't know if there's any questions on the local plan before we move on to the master plan.
Anyone got any questions for Keith on that?
Question.
Go ahead, Heather.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of housing there mentioned. Do we know the sites these houses will go?
So the neighbourhood framework will impart. A number of them will be provided through what we call windfall. So sites that we don't know about now. So the sites that could come forward through, for instance, and we don't necessarily want this to happen, but retail conversions or small backland sites, or the conversion of larger properties into smaller properties, or demolition of some sites to create new opportunities. But the neighbourhood framework will identify if there are any other opportunities for housing in the wider within the neighbourhood framework area, and that's one of the purposes of the neighbourhood framework going forwards.
Okay, thank you.
Shirley, you have a question there.
Unmute, Shirley.
You're muted, Shirley. Shirley, you're still muted. You need to unmute yourself. She's trying to sort it out. I'll just ask you one thing, Keith, while Shirley's trying to work that out. Is there any compulsory purchases envisaged, to provide this housing, or has that been thought about yet?
No, not at this stage, and don't anticipate this stage.
Yeah, Shirley, I can see you've unmuted now. Go ahead.
You can be now. Yeah. Sorry about that. I'm a bit confused because we've got a neighbourhood framework, but then we're talking about a local plan.
Yeah. So yeah, I know it's confusing. So
I'm sorry, I am confused.
Yeah. So the local plan is a document that covers the whole borough, and it can go down to a detail level, but in the case of New Brighton, it hasn't done. It has in some degree, but a master plan. This is where it gets more complicated. A master plan can be an informal planning document, or we can in some cases, we can make it more formal by adopting it as what's called a supplementary planning document. So in this case, the neighbourhood framework is running side by side with the local plan, but isn't at this, it won't at this stage be a formal planning document. The local plan will be a statutory document that covers the whole borough.
Can I just ask Sean, sorry, I can't put my video on.
Oh, right.
Is the neighbourhood framework still subject to further consultation?
Yes, we'll come on to that in a moment.
Great, thank you. And sorry, can I ask something else? I listened to the recent planning meeting regarding Hollands Hay, and there were references to the regeneration team. That was referred to the regeneration team. And I just wondered, have you already got some criteria already in mind for future developments of New Brighton?
There's a criteria, no, not criteria. I mean, the neighbourhood framework will set out some ideas on future residential development. But I'm not sure about the Hollands Hay. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, it was agreed that it would be demolished, replaced with apartments. I think it was the 4th time it had been to planning, and it finally got through last week. But it wasn't treated the same way the other planning applications were, and it kept referring to the regeneration team. It was a planning officer who presented it, and
right. Well, I apologise.
The master plan was referred to there, Keith.
Yeah,
that's the only reason.
Okay. Well, if it's within, I apologise for my ignorance on that. If it's within. It sounds like it's within the, so sorry, what I should have said is what the local plan has done. The local plan has designated the New Brighton area as a regeneration area, as one of 11 regeneration areas in the borough. And that's for a number of reasons. One is because of we want to direct certain housing and other investment to the area, but also it's quite often useful for when we subsequently bid for money from government that we've identified it as a regeneration area or an area in need of investment. So in that regard, I suspect, and we'll have to check on that, I think the planning officer probably referring to the fact that it lies within the regeneration area. And in that respect, if it does, then the housing numbers will contribute to the target that we've set for New Brighton.
Right. Can I ask one further thing, Sean?
Go ahead.
We did say we're discussing putting forward. I think Sean's put in the expression of interest for us to become a neighbourhood forum.
Yeah.
The group in the past 6 years that it's existed had never been told that it could do this, which I find bewildering, but there we go. Only discovered a couple of last month that we could do this, and we're keen, I think, to do it. Would that sort of work in tandem with any future neighbourhood frameworks, would you say?
Well, I will need to liaise with colleagues on this, but essentially the local plan provides the strategic policy for any neighbourhood framework. So in terms of the housing targets, yes, the neighbourhood plan. If a neighbourhood forum is established and a neighbourhood plan is produced, then that plan could, to my knowledge, seek to identify housing opportunities to meet that requirement. But otherwise, it'll be down to the local plan to do that.
Dave, I see you with your hand up there.
Yeah, just a quick question to Keith. Amongst all the sort of council jargon, is the Tower Grounds included in this master plan thing? Because there's been a lot of buzz going around.
So the Tower Grounds.
Hold on.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, there's been a lot of buzz going around that the council want to put houses on the Tower Grounds. Is that within this plan, or is that just rumour?
The neighbourhood framework will be setting out a range of options across the town for a number of for residential and other improvements. At this stage, I can't say whether the town grounds will be included in that. It's one of a number of sites that's been looked at, but it's definitely being looked at the moment as a new location for the RNLI lifeboat station. So we're just in discussions with the RNLI at the moment. So we'll explain what we're going to be doing with the neighbourhood framework. The next item, probably best to explain then, if that's okay. But we've got there's nothing specific at the moment for Tower Grounds. But we'll just explain where we're up to with the neighbourhood framework.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Just one last thing, Keith. Is it a 3-year plan, or neighbourhood framework? Is it a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, or is there time? There's
no real set period. It's really between the neighbourhood framework will be looking ahead for 10 years plus. But in reality, like every plan, you'd really need to review it after 5 years or so to see how it's developed and how it's achieved its aims and objectives.
Perfect.
Okay.
Do you want to move on then? I think.
Yeah. So, what was the next item? Is it the neighbourhood framework, Hannah?
Sorry, on the agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, pick up on that, I suppose, the where we've been today.
Yeah. So do you want me to make a start, Anna, and you can join in? Okay. So we started the master plan over the neighbourhood framework over a year ago, and we obviously undertook initial consultations, and we got some good responses from that. But really, purely, I think the key reason why we've been delayed is because of the capacity of staff in the council. So myself and Anna have been particularly involved in other regeneration projects, but particularly the local plan, which has drawn us away from other projects. So we're now in a position that we need to and we want to move forward now on the neighbourhood framework. So we'll be restarting the neighbourhood framework, and we will be intending to consult on a range of options in by late summer this year. That's the intention of doing that, and we're hoping to be able to undertake quite a wide-ranging consultation, trying to get to all different groups and stakeholders in the community. And in particular, we hope to be using the 3D model that we've got of the town as a key tool to do that. So we're going to be looking to try and get out to the schools, to all the people, as well as visitors, residents in the borough, and shoppers in the town. So that's where we're up to on that, and we'll be setting out a range of options for people to give their views and ideas, and there still will be an opportunity for if there's any new ideas. We would like to, before we do that, we are engaging the groups that we're aware of in the town, and we'd obviously like to engage with yourselves to get your ideas over the next few weeks, so that we can review those and to assess whether they can be taken forward into the draft options. So I think that's where we're at. Anna, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, sorry, I think Shirley's got a question.
From what I've seen, it seems to be a plan within a plan. There seems to be a broad plan for New Brighton, and then another plan for what Tony Hurst would call the leisure strip, and I haven't been able to correlate the two. So I just wondered, was there any more information on that, please?
Well, I think you've described it quite quite well there. So the neighbourhood framework is going to be a high level. It's again complicated jargon perhaps, but it's a higher level master plan. But the leisure strip, as you call it, or we're calling it Marine Promenade, that's a more detailed master plan. So what we hope to be able to do there is to set out matters such as building heights, which is a big issue there that we're aware of in potential development. So what height should any new development be there? What type of use will be allowed there? We would want to encourage what we call active ground floor usage on those areas. So to make sure that there's still vitality and a range of uses along the promenade there. So really, it's a planning tool that we want to use. As I tried to explain before, it's a mixture of setting out guidance, so developers will have some certainty about what the council will support and will expect. But it's also, we're hoping, will be promoting appropriate new development along that strip over the coming few years. So you're right, there are two. There's the neighbourhood framework, which, as I explained before, will be an informal planning document at this stage, but the master plan will be it's part of the local plan and could be adopted as a supplementary planning document. Now, you mentioned before the neighbourhood framework, neighbourhood plan. If if a neighbourhood forum is set up, then there's possibility. You would have to the forum could take forward its own ideas, or it could try to develop some of the ideas that have been set out in the neighbourhood framework that then could become the neighbourhood plan. If a forum is established and it does prepare a neighbourhood plan, then that plan will be adopted. It's called made, unfortunately, but if it's made and accepted after a referendum, then that will have the same status in planning as the local plan itself.
Okay, all right, so I got that. Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Keith. Yeah, I was just going to say that in addition to what Keith set out, really, that this forthcoming consultation that's planned for the summer will very much be, options. We want to make sure that everyone is engaged in that. And one of the other elements that we kind of recognised we needed to do further work on was in relation to the kind of ecology and flood risk constraints in New Brighton, which are quite significant. So we've carried out further work on that to look at that in more detail, and that will then help to inform the options that we go out with.
Go ahead, Kathy, you wanted to ask something there, I think.
Yeah, just a couple of things. One was, you mentioned consultation over the summer, and that's, I think, really important, because when we've done consultation in the past for example, our economic plan, it was done at the end of the summer, and obviously New Brighton is a tourism destination. So I think it's equally important to have the data from tourists as it is from shoppers or residents. That was one of the things. Secondly, if people would like to look at an example of a plan that's been produced by a neighbourhood forum, the Hoylake Neighbourhood Forum is online, and you can get that from the Wirral Council website, I believe. It's worth taking a look because it gives you an idea as to how important these documents are. So I would recommend doing that. But in terms of where we're leading to, so the Marine Promenade, Leisure Terrace, Leisure Strip, whatever you want to call it, how does that fit in? Like Shirley, I'm a little bit baffled as if we're doing research into the neighbourhood, does the intense work on promenade start? Who conducts it? Do we still have BDP, for example, as consultants? Could you let me know?
Yeah, so BDP will be the consultants who will prepare that master plan on behalf of the council, but council officers such as Anna, myself and Jane and others will be closely involved in that, and there will be engagement with the stakeholders on that. So that will be primarily the landowners and potential developers, but also, you know, key adjoining residents, property owners, and stakeholder groups in the town as well.
You lost the sound altogether.
Is that okay? I'm still here. Is that yeah, sorry. So that's yeah. So just to repeat, the master plan is a more detailed piece of work that's been undertaken within the neighbourhood framework contract that we've got with BDP. But that master plan will become, it's been prepared to be formal planning guidance to help promote development, but also to deliver the right kind of development along that strip. And the reason being is that it's an area that we know the reason we're concentrating on that specifically is we know that there's a significant amount of developer interest in that area. Okay.
Yeah.
So is there any questions on that?
I just see, Keith, if we were approved to be a neighbourhood forum, is there a little bit of conflict? You know, you've already seemed to have plans for a neighbourhood framework, and would that slow down your plans while we made ours to see?
It won't. It's a question. First of all, to get a forum, you need to have we'd have to give further guidance from my colleagues on that, but you would need to prove that you had a wide range of interests in the town, in the forum. The forum, you can't, the neighbourhood framework wouldn't be able to override the local plan, especially with it being a new local plan. And it will take you, 2 to 3 years to prepare a neighbourhood plan. What you've got to really be clear about is why you want to prepare a neighbourhood plan and what it would do. What would it do beyond the local plan and the neighbourhood framework that we're planning? I say there may be scope to prepare the neighbourhood framework to do something that is missed or is not being done in neighbourhood framework, or it could indeed be prepared to formalise some aspects of the neighbourhood framework.
We live here.
Okay. Yeah, Dave had his hand up first. Go ahead there, Dave.
Keith, this very much sounds like we've got the plan going. You can do all you like, but it won't make any difference.
Sorry, you mean the neighbourhood plan?
Well, I can't catch up with all your jargon about what is what, but what it sounds like is what you're deciding is almost like a done deal. And whoever, if there's a local group like this group here, or residents who actually live in the area, it won't make any difference what they say. It's going to go ahead anyway.
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Could you explain what you are saying then?
So what I'm saying is that the neighbourhood framework that we are producing will be a informal planning document. Okay, that will have some weighting. I'm sorry to talk about all these terms, but
no, sorry, informal means nothing to me and maybe to other people. Okay. Exactly what does the informal mean?
Okay, so when somebody makes a planning application, the planning officers and members who are making those decisions, they have to take account of a number of documents. Okay, the main document that they have to have regard to, well, there's two things they need to have regard to. One is the National Planning Policy Framework, which is government guidance, but the key document is the local plan. Okay, they have to have regard to that plan. And so therefore, the plan that we're preparing now, the new local plan, what the plan's saying about the town in terms of the master plan for the leisure strip or whatever you want to call it, that's a key factor. Okay. What members can also take account of, and officers, is other documents that will have some what's called, and again this is jargon, will have some material weight. It'll have some, they could be considered. In that regard, there are a number of documents, so it's strategies that the council might have adopted, or in this case, a neighbourhood a neighbourhood framework would be a similar document that could be considered. Okay. Now, if this group was to be able to get status as a neighbourhood forum, and I don't want to comment about whether you can or can't at this stage, you know, that will have to be considered. If you then went on to prepare a neighbourhood plan, you can prepare that plan about anything you like, well, within reason. If there's any purpose to it, the council will have to agree to some degree about what the scope of it is, but it's really down to the forum and what you want to do. You'd have to have regard to what the local plan is trying to do and what the neighbourhood framework is trying to do, and you could come up with something completely different and try to get that adopted as a neighbourhood plan. If it is adopted as a neighbourhood plan after a referendum, then that plan would have the same importance in determining planning applications as a local plan. Now, the complication here is that, yes, we have normally neighbourhood groups or forums prepare a plan because a neighbourhood plan, because there's a vacuum, there's a view that there's nothing being prepared for that area. The complication here is that we've got a new local plan coming out, and B, we've got this neighbourhood framework and the master plans. So you as a neighbour, if you decide to set up a neighbourhood forum and you are accepted as such, you'd have to look at those, what the council's doing, and decide whether there's still a purpose in you preparing it, or if you do prepare it, what aspects of, you know, what would you want to have the plan to say. So I'd be interested to hear what you think, you know, later on after, you know, it'd be interesting to hear what you think your plan would do, because that, you know, that would be of interest to us. So yeah, what would your plan do above and beyond what the neighbourhood framework would do? And I'm sorry about the complications, just the similarity of terminology that we're using, and I'd be better to explain it if we're face to face with a diagram. But you know, suffice to say, there's a lot of planning activity going on in New Brighton, and you know, you as a forum would have to decide carefully about what you want your neighbourhood framework to do, neighbourhood plan to do. Apologies.
Go ahead there, Shirley.
Yeah, I hear everything that you say, Keith. That's not a problem. But what I do have issue with is that nobody who lives or works in New Brighton has any contribution to make to this. Yeah, we.
In what way? Well, sorry, in terms of the neighbourhood framework.
Well, we do feel about, you know, like the Queen's Royal. Yeah, we do have issues about vacant land that's not been used for years. But it's very difficult to accept something that's done by council officers who actually don't have any connection with New Brighton. And how does New Brighton people who live or work in the area get some kind of hearing into what you're doing with the neighbourhood framework or the local plan? So,
treating the local plan first. The local plan we had a consultation 2 years ago. So the local plan is a very complex beast, and it takes you know, there's a lot of work goes into it. So we consulted in 2020 on that, and we're going to be publishing the local plan for representations on the 9th of May. There will be public exhibitions, and you'll be able to read the plan online, and you can make formal representations on that. If you don't agree with what the plan's saying, you've got the opportunity to make a formal representation about that. In terms of neighbourhood framework, we've had one consultation on the issues that have been facing the town, I think a year ago, and we are now engaging with you. We'd be happy to meet with you and any group that you know of over the next month to 6 weeks to talk about any issues or concerns that you've got that the neighbourhood framework has within its remit to look at. So that's the consultation that we're offering to undertake. There is the alternative model that you're suggesting that the neighbourhood forum could do, and that I'm neither encouraging or discouraging on that. I think you need to submit a formal application to the council on that, and my colleagues John Entwistle will look at that, and I have to be transparent. I will also be involved in that in my role, but John is our expert in this matter. So you can do that way, but you've got to make a judgment. So obviously, I can't. We're doing our best to ensure that we do engage with residents and groups, and this, we're open again now to over the next 6 weeks to do that. You will also have the opportunity in joining, in the summertime, to engage on the neighbourhood framework, both to comment on options and also comment if you think that we've missed an opportunity or a problem that needs to be resolved. All I can say from Anna and my viewpoints that we're trying as hard as we can do to engage with communities and the community, and the next consultation we hope to be as wide as possible to ensure that we do get to all different stakeholders. And you're right, Kathy, you mentioned tourists, so that's something that we will be looking to address.
Okay, that's great, thank you.
I see you there, Dave. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, Keith, you mentioned a sort of a diagram of all this jargon. That would be really helpful, because you know what you're talking about, but a lot of other people got not a clue as to which plan, which forum, blah, blah, blah. So that would help. And also let people know when you're going to have these consultations with people who, for instance, actually live in New Brighton, so that they can actually get along, talk to people face to face, and try to worm their way through the whole maze of what you're saying as to how it may affect them and how they may contribute ideas, proposals, and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So we will we'll definitely prepare that diagram. I totally accept that it is confusing to people who are not involved in it day to day. So I will certainly do that, undertake to do that. The one issue that we've not talked about over the last 2 years, obviously with engagement, the big problem that we've had is the COVID situation. So we haven't been able to do face-to-face. So as part of this, so what I'm offering now is that over the next 6 weeks, if any group, more than happy to meet with groups to look at any ideas that you've got to look at that, and we'll certainly on the planned engagement in the next big engagement in the summer, that we will try to have as many face-to-face events as we can do. So Jane, you've got your hand up there.
Yeah, if that's okay with the group. Just a couple of points really. The first one about engagement over the summer. I think the group, you're always well placed to know what's happening in the town and what's going on. So if there are any particular hate to use the word events, but is there any particular opportunities you think that could be mapped into that? That's always useful to know. Because we know there'll be footfall and people coming in for a specific reason, not necessarily to come and see the to come and see the plans, which is not necessarily a draw in itself, as we know. And the other thing really is, I think Kathy's point about tourists is really, really important. And I think we won't have time to talk about it at length on this agenda, but perhaps if I could come to a future meeting to talk about the destination marketing project that I'm now kind of overseeing, which is around both looking at the Visit Wirral website, but also some new campaigns over the next few years, and how we can kind of link the work of this group and any kind of potential sort of baseline in visitor research, because things have changed because of COVID. I think we've got new audiences in New Brighton and different audiences. So as much as we can find out about that will be really helpful. So yeah, so I just wanted to sort of put that on your radar really, and also to talk to you more broadly about what your aspirations are for the next couple of years around the town from a creative and events point of view.
Yeah, and building on that, Jane, I think it'd be really helpful for us if you could, as a group, if you could undertake to let us have, you know, in a couple of weeks' time, what you think the issues that you want the neighbourhood framework to address, and then we can, you know, we can consider them and address them over the next few months.
And yeah, just to chip in on that, I know that Shirley via the group has sent information in the past about the issues. I think it was following our transport session last February. But yeah, any sort of an up-to-date picture would be really helpful. We've got the information that you've previously provided, but if you could supplement that, that'd be great.
Keith, just go back to a little bit there. You answered one of my questions, which officers were going to decide on whether we would be approved for a neighbourhood forum. But on the 9th of May, will the plan actually be presented for consultation on the 9th of May?
Oh, so the local plan, which is a much higher, well, a higher level document in this case, is going to be, that's going to be subject to, it's going to be published on the 9th of May, not the neighbourhood framework.
Why wouldn't we ask before you publish that for what we felt was needed?
So we did, well, the difficulty is with the neighbourhood, with the plan, is that you can't, on a borough the size of the Wirral, the local plan, we can't get down to real detailed areas, which is why the council has decided to do a series of master plans. The local plan is working to a different scale and a different time scale. The government has been threatening to intervene into the planning system in the council unless the council prepared the local plan as quickly as possible. So that is ongoing. That's what we're going to be publishing on the 9th of May. The important thing I suppose the key things for New Brighton are that the local plan is not proposing to release Greenbelt, but it is proposing to meet all its development needs within existing urban areas and at a higher density. So that will apply to New Brighton, and specifically, the plan also includes the proposal for a master plan area for the marine promenade area, as we call it, from the Queen's Hotel to the pavilion. The neighbourhood framework is different level, more detailed, and that's what we're talking about doing separately but in tandem.
Sean, can I just ask a question on that specific? Yeah. Thanks, Sean. Yeah, I should explain as well. I'm also representing Dave Wilkie here because he's in the air. He's on a plane at the moment. He was bitterly disappointed he was going to miss this. He's urgently wanting to speak to yourselves, Keith and Hannah, regarding his development, because he's at a position now where he wants to move forward. He also wants to take in the views of this group and other people. He's got some ideas, but he really does, with urgency, want to speak to you as soon as he possibly can.
Well, that's great news, because we want to speak to him as well. Good. And soon as we can do, soon as he can, then we will get together.
But I think on the other point that Sean was making, and also that Dave's alluded to as well, my personal feeling about the group becoming a neighbourhood forum or achieving that status is, I think it just adds that locality issue. It adds the local input that can be missed with the best will in the world. I know that the officers here will do everything they can to consult with people, no doubt about that. But there are things that come from people living and working in the area that wouldn't come out otherwise. And I think we have had a few missed opportunities for all sorts of reasons, COVID being one of them. So I think it is important for the group to look at that. Probably after this session, we'll be circulating a lot of information, but certainly it can really give an input, a local input. So I would stress that that the group look at that very strongly.
Okay, well, I wouldn't argue against that. But what you need to take account of is most neighbourhood forums and plans are prepared because there's a vacuum of proposals. What you'll have to think through is what you want to be doing in the light of what the council is proposing to do through A, the local plan, and B, the neighbourhood framework.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. That's exactly what I'm saying. I think that will become apparent because there are lots of proposals for people coming into the area or wanting to develop the area, but there's also some proposals you're probably not aware of from people who live and work here. So
the balance. So ideally, we'd like to hear about them now so that we can consider them in the neighbourhood framework. If you want to go ahead and set up a neighbourhood forum, and that's something for you to decide separately. But it is an issue about whether what the scope is of what you're intending to do. I'm not trying, I'm not trying to discourage or encourage you on that. I think it'd be useful to have further conversations with you before you submit a neighbourhood forum application. And if you, in the first instance, if the person to contact on this is John, a guy called John Entwistle. So he's the person to contact initially on that.
Sent it through a link on the Wirral Council website. You have to email, but it doesn't give a person's name. It just says pick this.
No.
Keith, do you think, I'm just thinking I can take this away to John. I had flagged, because when I met with Kathy and Sana a few weeks ago, it was flagged. And when I circulated the notes of the meeting, I copied John in, so John's aware. And I know that we're due to meet next week, aren't we, next Tuesday? So we're just establishing a venue. But I can see if John could attend that meeting. So there's a bit of feedback. To talk through, and it'd be beneficial if we could hear a bit more about what the proposals are, because I put in the chat that neighbourhood plans are very for like the use of the land. So things like it wouldn't be defined as part of that. It's very much like what the use of the land will be, what the height of the building will be. So, but yeah, that's fine. I can take that away and we can find out a bit more information from John.
Great.
Okay.
Mute Nick there because there was some feedback of bad noise coming through on this.
Yeah, but I would stress that we'd really like your. I'd be interested to know what idea. Yeah. So what are your particular ideas, or sites, but also, what your vision is for the town. What kind of place you see the town being in the next 10 years, 15 years time. Especially having regard also to the fact that Birkenhead, the Birkenhead, we've got the Birkenhead 2040 framework, and that is likely to change significantly over the next 10-15 years. It's about what the role of New Brighton could be, is both within the borough, but I personally think that it's an incredible place, and it's got a place in the whole sub-region, the whole region that's so special. So that's what I'd really like your group to feed into over the next few weeks, is just let us know what your ideas are so that we can take account of them. If we don't know what they are, then we don't know, and we won't be able to respond to them.
Go ahead there, Shirley.
Yes, I think it's really important what Keith has said, because on a very micro point, we have a visitor information point in Marine Park, and outside people have said, oh, you need plant pots, you need flowers, you need this, that and the other to brighten up the park. But when you actually talk to the local residents, they actually just want gates that open and close and can lock. They want CCTV. So I think it's really important, what Keith has said, that we get our act together and let's get something for New Brighton, and what do we want? Because I live here, and other people live and work here. So I do think it's important that what we want may not necessarily be what outside consultants might want to see. So yeah, I'm Keith, I'm up with you there. I think we need to do something within the next few weeks and just let you know what we want.
Yeah, that would be great. And link it to what you would propose to what you'd want your neighbourhood forum or neighbourhood plan to achieve, and that would be of interest to us as well. But this is the opportunity now to set out what you think are the issues that a neighbourhood framework or a neighbourhood plan should be addressing, and then we can take stock, and we can discuss with you over the next several weeks about whether they are appropriate to be put forward into the neighbourhood framework. But I don't want to think that we get to summertime and we consult and there's issues that we haven't considered that you could have put forward. So COVID thankfully has eased a lot, and we are more able to get out now into the community. And I know Hannah and myself are more than happy to come out and to see sites and discuss things with you, but it has to be over the next few weeks because of the timescales that we're working to.
Well, we definitely will get back to you, Keith, in the next few weeks. We have plenty of ideas. We spoke about them many times over various meetings, so we will get something off you in the next week or two.
That would be brilliant. Really look forward to receiving them. I think the thing that Shannon and I would want to say, and speaking for Anna, but Anna can join, is that we do, and Jane, because I know Jane, you live in New Brighton, that New Brighton is a real special place, and it's just trying to come up with proposals that are the right proposals for New Brighton, and help it move forward.
Yeah, I can't claim to be a New Brighton resident. I live towards Wallasey.
Oh, sorry.
Liscard. But I'm there nearly every day, so
Yeah.
I'll claim it is. But yeah, it's a unique and special place, and you're the people who know that most of all. So need to reflect that in whatever comes through.
Yeah, but one thing I've got to say is that there are obviously other groups as well that we need to reach out to and stakeholders in New Brighton. But you are obviously one of those stakeholders, and we're really keen that you put your views forward.
Well, it certainly will be. So thank you for that. Anyone else want to say anything? Is that more or less a wrap from you, Keith?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's okay.
Any final little questions for Keith or Hannah or Jane before they go?
Sorry, just one. Sorry about that, Jane. I know I've been in contact with you over the destination marketing budget. You mentioned about heritage. When we've looked for a heritage strategy for Wirral, it's focused on Birkenhead, and we were wondering if there is any focus for ourselves, because both myself and Shirley are involved in heritage. I'm trustee of the Lighthouse. Shirley runs the Heritage Association. So we just wondered, is there anywhere, are we missing that, or is there more to be done on the heritage?
No, more to be done from a kind of borough-wide perspective, but the culture and heritage strategy is for Birkenhead, because it's come under the auspices of the Birkenhead 2040 framework, which has been produced. However, there's quite a lot in it which will have implications for wider Wirral. So I'd include things like Borough of Culture and that, which would be a Wirral-wide initiative, but really trying hard to bring together culture and heritage, so ensuring that kind of our heritage assets are kind of highlighted as part of any cultural programmes we might do. So there is more to be done. As I say, I would appreciate possibly coming back to this group to have a chat with you about that. and kind of, but I think it's also really important when you feed back to Keith and Hannah to highlight the heritage assets of because some of them, and we know this across the borough, some of them are more obvious than others, and we don't always know kind of those stories, as well as, you know, the sort of why they might be important to the local population as well as important as a listed building, for example. So if you could include that, Shirley, Kathy, that would be really helpful. That would be really useful for us. We did some mapping of heritage assets as part of the Birkenhead strategy, and it did touch on some of the kind of wider Wirral stuff as well. So, but Keith I work to Keith now, and Keith's really kind of passionate about heritage and making sure that's represented. So, and we're looking at kind of the resource and the directorate to support that. So watch this space. But yeah, if you could feedback any thoughts on that in the interim, that would be really useful. Thank you.
It would be great just from a point of view of funding as well, because we wouldn't want to think that the focus was purely Birkenhead. No resentment at all for what Birkenhead's getting. It's about time. But, you know, we just want to make sure that there is that opportunity for the wider area, and particularly New Brighton. It's often overlooked.
Yeah, I mean, a good example of that, sorry, I know we're drawing to a conclusion, but would be the relationship with Heritage Lottery Fund, who have said to us in the past, you know, you need to articulate what your priorities are around a pipeline of projects. Well, yes, of course, there's things in Birkenhead that are going to be key, but there's also things across the wider borough. So, you know, they could be bigger projects. So that it's getting a sense of all of that, and I'd really welcome, because I know your expertise in that is from a local perspective is brilliant. So, yeah, we'll carry on that conversation.
Okay.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah. So yeah, from our side, just to repeat that, really look forward to getting your written ideas for the town and concerns and issues, and you know, we'll have further conversation with you on them. But ideally, we need them in within 2 weeks, if we could do.
Right. Well, thank you very, very much, Keith. Thanks, Hannah. Thanks, Jane. We're just finishing up. If you want to, I know you're busy, guys. If you want to say goodbye, and we speak soon.
Well, thanks.
Thank you so much. Nice to see you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye.
Be anything else?
It was interesting anyway, I think, listening to him. He says he wasn't discouraging us from a neighbourhood forum, but I think he was very much discouraging us.
Yeah.
It's a legal right, though. This is the point. I mean, I'm still, as I say, completely baffled. Why have we only just found this out? We should have known years ago. We didn't, but we know now, and we can do it. It doesn't necessarily have to take 2 to 3 years, but it's worth thinking about anyway.
No, but he was definitely discouraging us, and he has a bit of input into whether we're approved or not. Which
Bit of input, but legally they can't stop us. If you look at the Locality Act, they actually can't stop us.
But we will work with them. We'll get something together, Cathy, over the next week or so, and get something after and some ideas that we want included in it, I think.
Sure.
So I'm working with them. Right, we move on. The next thing, Dave, do you want to speak about the 20 mile per hour limit on the section of the promenade from Rolson Street all the way up to Exton Street? Has this been applied for? Has somebody applied for, Dave?
No. This is purely a proposal. I did a bit of research. I was under the impression that if you wanted to do anything with the roads that imply a legal thing, like a 20 mile an hour speed limit, you had to go through national government, but you don't. It's council responsible for setting local speed limits. Therefore, the proposal, and you will have seen the map, is essentially from the bottom of Rowson Street by the roundabout, all the way around past the Floral, down to the small roundabout, which adjoins the start of the actual promenade. The reason for this is essentially not simply from the 1st of May to the 30th of September, but even when there's a really sunny Sunday or a really sunny Saturday, that area is absolutely rammed with cars. The car park's full, but the real point is that stretch of road There are pedestrians going across it all the time. Cars go down there at ridiculous speeds for that sort of environment. Was 30 mile an hour in that area, that bit of road is way too fast. But of course, 30 mile an hour is the legal speed limit, which is why the proposal, and it is just a proposal, is to have a 20 mile an hour speed limit for that section of road. On the map, the section of road is dotted in red. So it's purely a proposal at this moment. Is it worth doing? Is it not worth doing? Should it be done? Should it not be done? Essentially.
Something should be, Dave, something, because I mean, we even have bikes going faster than cars at times here, coming off the prom. They don't have to whistle by, you know.
That's right.
And motorbikes, yes.
Yeah.
There's one thing I thought, Dave, when you put it up there, I started doing some research, and are you aware of Liz Gray's proposal at the moment?
About what?
About road traffic 20 mile an hour limits being introduced.
Not aware of that.
Okay, what's happened is councils can do it, you're quite right, but it can only be done every so often, and it costs a fortune. When the council last did a whole load of 20 mile an hour limits, it was 2014, it cost in excess of £1 million. They brought consultants in, so it's quite a pricey thing. Now, back in January, I think, Liz Gray came up with a proposal for the introduction of further 20 mile an hour limits across Wirral. The council have approved them, but they're not telling us where they are until after the election.
Oh, gosh.
Typical.
Yeah.
Everybody's guessing at the moment, but I would be surprised if the prom is included in that.
Lost you, Kath.
Sorry, are you losing me?
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hang on. Shall I type it, or can you hear me?
I can hear you clearly now, Kathy.
Okay. Where the council have done it, it tends to be residential roads and not usually the whole road. It tends to be part of a road. And there have been a couple of promenades done, like Park Gate, but they're one way and they're narrow. Hoylake is another area. It's partly one way. So it might be a bit tricky to do a sort of promenade, but it's worth putting in. But my view would be speak to Liz Gray, because she's key to this. She's putting the proposals together. So I'd give her a bell if I were you.
Yeah, well,
Okay, that's useful.
yeah. And why do they need consultants?
Yeah.
Just
Right. Well, because I'm resting at home at the moment, I've got nothing better to do than look at legislation, and there's an awful lot that needs to be done. The government have produced what they call a toolkit, which local authorities use. They have to do an assessment of the traffic rate per day of each area. On top of that, they have to assess what type of traffic. Then they have to look at what would be the impact of slowing down the traffic. There's an awful lot they have to do. They also have to decide, and you'll have to decide, Dave, with the proposal, whether you're asking for a 20-mile zone or a 20-mile limit, because limits tend to have road calming, traffic calming measures such as speed humps. Zones don't. But the other point that's been made is that there's capital costs, because they have to put a lot of signage up. There are fees to be paid, because there are legal fees they have to do. There are police fees. And then, of course, you've got the thorny problem of how do you police it? How do you actually police it?
So sorry, quick question there. You mentioned police fees, and then how do you police it? Well, if you're paying police fees, shouldn't that be there? Then they should be policing it.
That's a nice try. No, the police fee is purely to the fee that lets the police allow you to do it, because the police are consulted in this. There are certain fees handed over, and I don't know the price, but the policing of it, the monitoring of it, shall we say, that's always the thorny problem with longer stretches of road. How do you do it? Obviously, there's lots of cost implications with it. This is what the council will say. This is all I'm saying. This is what the council say, which is why they tend to do it in batches. they tend to make applications in batches. So you may find that there's a possibility for consideration for the prom, but I'm not sure whether that's passed, because, as I say, Liz Gray has indicated that the roads have been decided on, but she's not saying where they are.
Okay. If I do, just a question to the group really. If I just send that proposal off that you've all seen to Liz Gray, can I send it as of the new Brighton Coastal Community Team?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will you add bikes and motorbikes onto that as well? As in the traffic jam?
Well, traffic, all sorts of traffic.
Vehicles. Just say
Yeah,
all vehicles. Because
Vehicles.
I discovered a couple of months ago that a bicycle, the definition of a bicycle is a vehicle. So
Yeah.
technically, there shouldn't be any bikes on the promenade. You know,
No,
on the paved, there shouldn't be. So that's how antiquated the bylaw is on the paved part of the promenade. It bans all vehicles, but bicycles are vehicles. There you go.
Bikes shouldn't be on the prom.
Okay, I'll do that.
They'll probably look at accident rates. I wonder what the accident rates on the prom are. That's probably one of the criteria they look at.
Yeah, they do, Sean. It's not quite as complicated as it is for a zebra crossing or a pedestrian crossing, where they do look at, you need a death really to get that kind of thing. But they will look at incidents. They will look at all sorts of implications. But there are special traffic survey people who do this. And that's where I think the consultation fees come in. But I don't know. I've just been learning fairly quickly in this last week. But I do think, as I say, a conversation with Liz Gray, because she seems to know all about it.
Very good.
I'll do that.
Thanks, Dave. That'd be great. The last thing on the agenda then, it's just a deep clean. You may remember where we discovered there about a month ago, that they paid over £13,000 to steam clean a section of Victoria Road and part of the pavement outside of Fun Palace. We went back to them because we weren't happy and looking for a lot more answers to a lot more questions, but we had to do it on our freedom of information. Now, these 20 working days to respond. They have until Wednesday to respond. They haven't responded yet, so we can't really do anything until the 20 days are up. But if they haven't responded within the 20 days, they were supposed to supply planters, bins, litter bins, and what was those 3 different things? Benches in each area. But the 13,000 they allocated to New Brighton, they said it was solely spent on steam cleaning the pats. So we've asked for further information on it. So I'll give them the next couple of days, but it's something we will have to come back to at the next meeting. But I will email you as soon as I hear anything back from them. And if they don't get back, I'll be on to them to ask them why they haven't responded. They're legally they should respond within 20 working days. There was Easter and that in between, so it's probably delayed a little bit.
We do know that the areas they pressure washed were outside, a tiny bit outside the new palace, which Dave Wilkie was not consulted about and was quite bemused because he pays for pressure washing. So there was no need for that to be done. They didn't do the bit that needed doing. The rest of it was done on Victoria Road. And when I spoke to Danny about it, he said they were there for a couple of hours one day, a couple of hours the next day. The fact that £13,700 has been spent on pressure washing is ridiculous when you know how short we are of things like litter bins. Yeah. So that's why we're getting in a bit of a bee about it, because
they told us that officers had decided that they said it had to be approved quickly to get the funds. So the officers had decided themselves what would be done without consulting even the councillors, the elected councillors. Our argument was they should have reached out to at least the councillors in each area and asked them what would be the best way to spend this money. But they said because they had to do it quickly, they just decided amongst the officers in the council what would be done. But they hired a company, they hired Biffa to do them. They gave the contract to Biffa, who subcontracted it to a company in Northampton, who then subcontracted it on to local people. This company in Northampton, they booked of only 2 employees, the man and woman who own it. And they do an awful lot of these contracts for local authorities, and they make an awful lot of money every year. So it seems to be an awful waste of money. So we're just trying to get to the bottom of that.
They don't take a bit, wouldn't they? Yeah.
Yeah. So any other business, anyone got anything else to add?
Could I ask, has there been any news about bins on the Ian Fraser Walk? Has there been anything said?
Yeah, I did mention it earlier. The council have still said there's no money, but Councillor Paul Martin has made an application to the Liverpool City region for funding. They have some sort of fund, and we don't know whether it's been, well, it hasn't been approved yet, but they haven't said no yet either. So we're just waiting to hear back from him. So,
okay, thanks, Sean. I'm sorry I had to go to.
No, it's okay. Absolutely no problem with those.
Thank you.
Steve Rotherham is going to be coming to New Brighton, by the way. He has said he's going to come. Yeah, I've been writing to him, and he replied back and said towards the back end of May or the first week of June. So we need to be ready for him. We need to have a bit of a schedule sorted out for him. He's going to need to see a lot. But because he's controlling the next level of levelling up funds, and he controls the funds Sean's just talked about, I think we really need to take that seriously. So as soon as I get a date sent back to me, I'll be circulating it to everybody, obviously. Okay.
Cheers, Kath.
Dave, you have your hand?
Yeah, don't know if everyone knows. I'm sure Sue Mace knows, but the council have magically found some money to redo the Vale Park toilets.
Woo! Correct. Hooray!
Hey.
I think Sean mentioned that before.
Yeah, we're not holding our breath at the minute. We've been told
No.
there's going to be a prefab as a temporary measure. And they're hoping to get it in before the summer. So it looks as if it's good news, but we'll be keeping on that case, Dave.
We need them to
Meanwhile, Harrison Drive are still locked up and totally inoperable.
Well, I contacted them nearly a month ago as well to ask them about who's supposed to open and why it hasn't been opened. And I did suggest that maybe would they hand over responsibility to us and we try and get volunteers to open it and keep it clean. So at least it'd be something that, you know, it would be open, but I haven't heard back from them about that either. So
they look a mess.
Yeah,
a mess, absolutely. Yesterday we were going out about 11 and I went round and I photographed them, and it's awful. It's like a third water block.
Somebody about the toilets in Vale Park, we've been told it's a prefab, and a lady messaged me that she was in Ashton Park in West Kirby and there's a prefab toilet there, she says, which is permanently locked. She says it looks dreadful. So she was kind of suggesting maybe that's the prefab we're getting. So
well, I was talking about the toilets in the park, and the person I was talking to said the last toilets, they actually got delivered. I think it was from Holland or somewhere there, like, and they came in like a unit, and this big crane actually lifted it over. So whether that's what I'm thinking of this time, which would be suggest the prefab type toilets that we don't want.
Yeah, well, I'd be told that it was literally the building that was damaged, that all the pipework and all the drains, that none of them were affected. So it shouldn't be that big of a job.
That's another thing we've been told as well, that the building, because we looked at the building quite closely, a lot of it had gone, but the drain, but it was up one end. I mean, there was a few down the other that weren't affected, but it
took it all down.
Because there was 1,000 people at Joy Time the other day, adults and children. 1,000 people turned up with with the cafe toilet facilities. It was absolutely, and knocking at our house.
Were they as well?
Yes.
Oh no.
We've over 1,400 signatories on our petition so far, so that's gone
fabulously done. Fabulously done.
Great. So we call it up, boys and girls, and we see you all.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Nice to see you, Kathy, looking so well indeed.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
16th of May.
Thank you.
The next week. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.